Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the March 9th meeting of the Comox Valley Sewage Commission. Welcome all. Thanks to staff and commissioners for making the time to be here today. I'd like to acknowledge that we're meeting on the unceded traditional territory of the Comox First Nation, and we're grateful for the privilege of living and working here. We'll move right into our agenda. We have no delegations, but our first item is the management report, and I'll take a motion for receipt.
Move receipt.
Second.
Moved by Cole Hamilton, seconded by Morin. Any questions or discussion?
Yes.
Director Swift.
Thank you. This is regarding the conveyance piece, and I'm just wondering if Chris could update us with what's going to happen to the Quadra line. As it currently sits, it joins into the line at Croto Beach, or Croto and Balmoral, or in that area anyway. And it was supposed to be on a temporary basis. So I guess my question is, can it hook in? Will we have the ability for it to hook into the main system and bypass the Comox pump station?
Chris LaRose will respond.
Good afternoon, everyone. Sure, happy to respond to that question. So you're right. When the connection was initially made to the town collection system at Balmoral and Torrance, an agreement was put in place, a letter-based agreement was put in place, which did speak to it being temporary pending the construction of the Comox 2 project. So as we know, that project morphed into the liquid waste management plan. And I guess with the recent decision by the commission to select the preferred conveyance solution, we now know for sure that that there will not be a pump station built in that area. So that line, which brings up the need, I guess, to meet with the town and discuss translating that temporary agreement into a permanent one. That line and the pump station at the HMCS Quadra is not suited for injection into a large diameter, high pressure conveyance line. So there is no prospect of boosting it or pushing it into that line. I say this is a little premature because I think the conversation definitely needs to happen at the staff level. And then we can bring something forward to a subsequent sewage commission meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Director, and thanks, Chris. Any further questions or discussion? Hearing none, does anyone object to receipt? That is passed, and we'll move on to public input on the financial plan. Mr. Dyson.
Thank you very much, Chair and Commissioners, and welcome today. We will be presenting the financial plan for the sewage service. We don't have any public input at this time, but those of the members of the public wish to provide input or questions are directed to our website to make inquiries through those that will be brought to your attention before the adoption of the financial plan.
Thank you. And if any members of the public are tuning in today, I neglected to welcome you. Thanks for being interested in this work. We'll move on to reports, the Management Advisory Committee meetings. Motion for receipt.
Moved.
Second.
Moved by Director Swift, seconded by Director Morin. Any questions or comments? Hearing none.
Sorry, I'd raised my hand.
Cole Hamilton, go ahead.
Thank you. It's perhaps not a consequential thing, but I noticed that in both this and the water minutes for the advisory committee that CAO, interim CAO Kushner was listed as deputy CAO, and I just thought perhaps to reflect the role he's been in the last 6 months, correcting that might be worthwhile.
Thank you very much, Commissioner, for raising that, and we will be sure to do that.
Thanks, Director Cole Hamilton. Any other comments or discussion? Hearing none, does anyone object to receipt? Hearing and seeing none, that is passed. And number 2, the sewer conveyance project alternative approval process logistics. Motion to receive the report of March the 4th.
Move receipt.
Second.
Moved by Cole Hamilton, seconded by Swift. Comments from staff.
Thank you very much. Deputy CAO James Warren is here to present this report and the recommendations and answer any of your questions.
Thanks, Russell, and good afternoon, Commission members. So just a really brief verbal update on the report. On February 23rd, the Sewage Commission did resolve to pursue the tunnel force main option for the conveyance project. And with that, to secure a portion of the funding for the project through a loan authorization bylaw. This staff report introduces that loan authorization bylaw, which would authorize borrowing up to $52 million to be repaid over a maximum 30-year term. The report also describes the rationale for undertaking the electoral approval for this loan authorization bylaw through an alternative approval process. Various considerations were given to use of the AAP, and given the critical nature of the infrastructure project to public health and environmental protection, as well as the substantial public engagement that has been conducted to date, the AAP is an appropriate tool to use to seek electoral approval. If it's supported, the AAP response period would be held for the month of June, ending on July 5th. Also, the CVRD is undertaking a singular AAP approach. This is combining a number of different AAPs into one point in time so the public has ease of access to that information, that it's clear what is being asked of the public and which AAPs they may choose to respond to. So this conveyance loan authorization AAP would be included with those other AAPs for June. And then following the close of the AAP, we would report back to the Sewage Commission in mid-July.
Thanks very much. Any questions or comments for James or staff? Hearing and seeing none. Does anyone object to receipt? Hearing and seeing none, receipt is passed. And I'm going to ask that if we could read out the recommendations, just given the significance of the process. Would somebody like to move recommendation 1?
I'll move it.
Director Swift, if you could read it, please.
That the following bylaw be introduced, read 3 times and forwarded to the Inspector of Municipalities for approval. Bylaw number 647 being Sewer System Conveyance Project Loan Authorization Bylaw number 647, 2021. And further, that participating area approval be sought by way of alternative approval process to be conducted with respect to the electoral approval required for bylaw number 647 for the entire service area.
Thanks. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Director Minions. Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none, does anyone object to passing recommendation number 1? Seeing and hearing none, that is passed. Recommendation 2, Director Minions specifically asked if she could read this one.
I slightly recall that recollection. I'll move recommendation 2, that with respect to the proposed bylaw number 647 being Sewer System Conveyance Project Loan Authorization Bylaw number 647, 2021, the Comox Valley Regional District CVRD Board approves the electoral response form and bylaw synopsis as provided in the notice of the AAP, and upon receiving approval of the bylaw by the Inspector of Municipalities, CVRD staff be directed to publish the notice for each bylaw in accordance with section 86-2 of the Community Charter, including the following information as generally outlined in the staff report dated March 4th, 2021. The total number of eligible electors to which the AAP applies is 30,736 within the service area. The notice of the AAP shall be published in the Comox Valley Record, as well as additional notice provided via the CVRD website. The deadline for receiving electoral responses is established as Monday, July 5th, 2021 at 4:30 p.m. following the 30-day statutory electoral response period. The electoral response form provides for only a single elector response on each form and will be available at the CVRD office, CVRD offices, and on the CVRD website from the first publication date of the notices of the AAP until the deadline of the electoral response period as determined above, and the electoral response forms may be accepted in any of the following manners: in person at 77 Harmston Avenue, Courtney, BC, Monday to Friday, 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., excluding statutory holidays; via mail to 770 Harmston Avenue, Courtney, BC, V9N0G8, via fax at 250-334-4358, or via email attachment to administration@comoxvalleyrd.ca with the subject heading electoral response.
Marvelous job. Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Director Morin. Is there any question or discussion? Seeing and hearing none, does anyone object to passing recommendation number 2? Seeing and hearing none, recommendation number 2 is passed. And we move on to number 3, the 2021 to 2025 financial plan for the Comox Valley Sewage Service, function 335 to 338. Motion for receipt.
Seat.
Seconder?
Second.
Moved by Cole Hamilton, seconded by Minions. And we'll pass it over to staff.
Thank you very much, Chair and Commissioners. And Chris LaRose is on the line. He will present the financial plan and has a PowerPoint presentation, and we are all available to answer any of your questions.
Thank you, Russell. Through the chair, good afternoon, everyone. So Mike and I have prepared a presentation to help guide you through the recommended 5-year financial plan for the Comox Valley Sewage Service. So normally you would have seen a proposed financial plan for this service before now, but the timing of the conveyance project implementation decision on February 23rd prompted us to defer bringing the financial plan for approval until today. So the recommended plan in front of you for approval today includes not only the up-to-date cost estimates and timing for the conveyance project, but also optimized reserve use and borrowing terms to ensure that the significant costs of the project are spread out over existing and future users. Next slide, please. So except for the boundary expansions of the 2 participating municipalities over the years, the current service area really hasn't changed much since 1984. So it includes all of Courtney and Comox, CFB Comox, and KFN reserve land. So the sewer service does not collect any wastewater from the CVRD electoral areas. However, about a year ago, February of last year, the Sewage Commission did decide to, in principle, support the receipt of wastewater from Area A, which could pave the way for flows from the south region to one day flow into the service area or into the service. Next slide, please. So wastewater within the service area is collected by the participants. So the collection system is owned and maintained by the participants, and then delivered to one of 6 regional pump stations where the sewer service takes over and conveys the wastewater to the Comox Valley Water Pollution Control Center on Brent Road, located in Area B. So where it undergoes secondary treatment before discharge about 3 kilometers off of Cape Lazo. So the primary byproduct of the treatment process is what we call biosolids. And this product is then trucked up to the biosolids composting facility next to the Comox Strathcona Waste Management Center, where it's combined with wood chips and then composted to produce the popular Skyrocket soil amendment product. So all of this infrastructure is operated by Mike Emery, our manager of wastewater services, and his team of skilled and highly certified operators, most of which are shown here on these 2 photos. So Mike's here with us today to provide some highlights from last year's accomplishments and what's on the work plan for this year. So over to you, Mike.
Thank you, Chris. Good afternoon, everybody. Just a shot of this. This is the staff that have worked really hard over the last year. Managed to stay healthy through COVID and managed to keep the service running as well as they could. Bottom left of the picture is Rob and Lauren. They operate and maintain the biosolids facility and are really grateful for the upgrades that happened 2 years ago to enhance the product and increase their productivity. Next slide, please. Highlights from 2020. You can see bottom left picture is a photo from the CFB Comox pump station upgrade that we've completed. That was all done in preparation for the Greenwood trunk to come online, as well as the Hudson trunk that's coming online now to convey the wastewater to the wastewater treatment facility. You can see in the middle, the equalization basin that was completed, been used. It's filled with fresh water. It kind of looks like Lake Louise. That's why I chose that picture. We upgraded control systems at the Courtney pump station, as well as the wastewater treatment plant, new PLC upgrades, so we can operate and maintain all the time. State-of-the-art equipment put in. And then in the fall, we added some beach nourishment to the Willamar Bluffs in order to protect the force main until we can complete the conveyance project. Throughout maintenance-wise, we monitor that level of cover on the bluffs twice a year, and as well as after each storm, our staff go out, take photographs, document, make sure the cover stays in place during the winter. Next slide. Our work plan for 2021, the odor control project that you passed, and it's moving along really well. This photo is actually of covers on existing bioreactors. So you can see we're about half of the bioreactors are covered now. There's still a lot of mechanical work and pipe work to be done, but this is what they'll look like. We're going to do site odor modeling as soon as it's completed to ensure that we're getting performance and see the difference that it makes. We're going to consolidate 2 PLCs and upgrade controls for our solids thickening in the DAF 1 and 2 area. We're going to do a staff shower and change room facility at the compost facility so the guys can change without being within the biosolids separate, keep their home clothes out of the smelly areas and such. We're going to start moving forward on the phase 1 upgrades for the wastewater, the main wastewater treatment plant here by doing an overall site master plan so that when we start our future expansion, we have a good plan for the site and where everything will go that we can follow for the next 40, 50 years. And then we've been rehabilitating our primary clarifiers to extend the life and keep them in service for another 50 years. And as part of that is major mechanical rehabilitation and some concrete coatings. We do that with the staff on site here. They're very talented and they do a lot of the work. We do a lot of the work in-house. Next slide, please. Pass it back to Chris. Thank you.
Great. Thanks for that excellent update, Mike. Certainly an incredibly busy time for the service. So now I'll walk you through the highlights of the recommended plan that you have in front of you. So revenue for this service comes from the municipal requisition, which is allocated between the 2 municipalities based on flow. So revenue from the D&D and the KFN is under a service agreement with each, and then also from septage receiving. So it's an important reminder that the plant also plays a critical role for rural properties by processing the solid residual that comes out of their on-site treatment systems. So Mariah Fort and her team took a deep dive into the financial modeling for this service and worked very closely with municipal finance staff to develop the recommended municipal requisition increase, which actually looked very similar to what was approved in the last plan, but with a more gradual increase out to the end of this plan. So smoothing out those increases right through to the end of 2025. And then beyond that, followed by a drop down to kind of inflationary level increases over the subsequent years. Next slide, please. So for personnel, we're projecting a 7% increase in personnel costs for 2021 year over year. And this is attributed to a new position, or in part due to a new position, which will be a combination of an electrician and an instrumentation tech. So up until now, we've done all of electrical work has been contracted out. So with the addition of this role, we will transition some of the more critical electrical roles to the in-house resource, as well as assigning that person to be the field safety representative who will be kind of on our electrical permits and retain kind of overall responsibility for our key electrical infrastructure. And we're hoping that individual also will possess skills in the instrumentation technician side of things to be able to provide an effective backup to our in-house SCADA resources. So we're feeling quite positive about this new addition to the team. So this role will be largely split between water and wastewater. So that accounts for some of that 7%. We also see kind of the scheduled increases to wages and benefits under the collective agreement. And then also 2021 is the first full year of the new operator position that was hired last year, partway through the year. And then we're also adding just a little bump up in salary, anticipating a wage increase for our 2 senior operators for the service, because we anticipate their positions to be reassessed under the JJE, under the collective agreement. Next slide, please. So on the operating side, we're predicting a slight decrease by approximately 3%, and this is in line with the efficiencies that were identified to help reduce total cost impacts for the service during the COVID renewal. So this was part of the COVID renewal plan to help with to help the local community recover. And I think for this service, the conclusion was to earmark those savings for strengthening our reserve contribution and thereby increasing the service's resilience to any unforeseen impacts from the pandemic. Next slide, please. So over this plan, capital works and DCC reserves are expected to be drawn down to near minimum levels at some point towards the end of this plan to help fund the significant capital projects, the biggest of which is the conveyance project. But by the end of this recommended plan, the reserve balances are projected to be steadily increasing to set the service up well to be able to fund a healthy share of the significant upcoming capital work for upgrading the treatment plant. So as Mike mentioned, we are embarking on the site master plan for the treatment plant site. This was coming out of the liquid waste management planning process. It'll be a key input to the stage 3 plan, which describes the kind of precise upgrades that will be used to achieve the desired level of treatment. So those capital works will be coming towards the end of this 5-year plan or potentially just beyond it. And then looking farther out from that, in the early 2030s, we have a significant capital project, which is the replacement of the existing outfall. So it's a 6-kilometer pipe from the treatment plant, 3 kilometers out towards Point Homes, and then the 3-kilometer marine outfall. So that will, in the early 30s, will be reaching the end of its expected lifespan. We'll be reassessing the condition as time passes and not replacing it until we have to, but that is kind of on the radar. And what we're seeing here with this plan and our reserves is we should be in a fairly good spot to help fund a good share of these major projects with reserves. Next slide, please. So 2020 was a big year for capital spending. 2021 we expect to be a little bit lower as we finish a number of the major capital projects that were initiated over the last couple of years and before the conveyance project really gets going towards the end of next year. So you can see there that, that we're forecasting just under $9 million total capital spending this coming year versus just over 12 last year. Next slide. A little bit more detail on the capital projects expected this year. So they're a combination of budgeted for this year and then carry forward. So just some projects being completed from last. So starting at the top, we are flagging the first capital spending on the conveyance project to occur towards the end of this year. So forecasting approximately 4.2 million. So that would be, it's likely a generous amount for this year, as we will just be, those will be largely design procurement costs, which could stretch over into the beginning of next year. Second one there is the carry forward to complete the odor control upgrades that Mike touched on there. So we've the commitments in place to have those done by early summer 2021, and we are on track to have that in place. So that's approximately 4 million to complete that project in addition to what was spent last year. The third item there is the EQ basement piping. So the basin itself was complete last year. But part of that project was replacement of some key piping within the basement of the treatment plant, and there's just a little bit remaining to complete that project. The same goes for the Comox pump station. Mike had touched on that one and highlighted that one is now complete. So that 82K is complete in the first couple months of this year. Renewal of one of our vehicles. And some miscellaneous annual capital projects, including the new shower facility up at the compost site. So together, those add up to the just over 8 million on the capital budget for this year. Next slide, please. So you're quite familiar with this slide by now, with the implementation decision on February 23rd. But just a refresher, while we had indicated that the conveyance project implementation strategy would be brought forward today, we've decided to take the opportunity to work more closely with our municipal partners to ensure consensus on the project delivery method before bringing forward that recommendation to the commission. So we now expect to have that in front of you in April. And in the meantime, we'll be working closely with town and city staff to progress on that project delivery decision, and then also the alignment through the town and progressing the preliminary design for that element of the project. So final slide, please. So just in summary, and split these into the corporate strategic priorities. So from a fiscal responsibility perspective, clearly we're in a period of intense capital spending. The capital funding strategy that is embedded in this plan, developed by Mariah and her team, strives to spread out the impact over existing and future users. From a climate perspective, climate environment, the primary driver of the liquid waste management plan is to eliminate the environmental risk posed by the line along Willowmore Bluffs, and all new infrastructure that's designed and delivered under the LWMP and anywhere else within the service will be designed for resilience to sea level rise and climate change, the projected local impacts of climate change. From a community partnerships perspective, the LWMP involved intensive consultation with stakeholders and engagement with the public. And the service itself is a collaboration between the service participants. And finally, for Indigenous relations, in December of 2020, the So KFN and the CBRD finalized the community benefits and accommodation agreement, which was a major milestone both for the project and for the relationship between the local governments and the KFN in the valley. And we've made a very clear and firm commitment to adhere to the KFN recently adopted KFN cultural heritage policy for any of our operational and capital work. So that's it from me. So Mike and I are happy to answer any questions.
Thanks very much, Chris and Mike. And we'll take questions or comments from members of the commission. And we have Director Swift first.
Thanks, Chris. I'm just wondering, the $150 per household levy, how will that show up on the tax statement? Will it be a separate line or?
So the $150 is an estimate. So that was developed in collaboration between Mariah and the CFOs from Courtney and Comox. It is definitely not a reflection on the anticipated precise impact within Courtney and Comox, which is likely to vary depending on the strategy imposed by each of the finance departments. So it is anticipated to be an average, similar to that average number communicated for the Comox Valley Water Treatment Project. But again, exactly how it will be implemented will differ between the two municipalities. So it's not a...
Okay, so it would be up to the town of Comox how they wanted to represent it on their tax notice? Is that correct?
Yeah, so it's not $150 per connection fee that's being levied by the service. It's embedded in that schedule of requisition increases. So we made a commitment to provide an estimated impact per household, but really it's just the cost that that 5-year schedule of increases to the requisition plus the inflationary increases after that help to cover the debt servicing costs associated with the project. It's our prediction, informed by that consultation with the municipal staff about approximately what kind of impact could be expected. But yeah, it's quite indirect, and there's a lot of latitude there, total latitude, in fact, in terms of how the municipal staff choose to pass that on to the residents.
Okay, and a communication plan around this fee, is there going to be one coming from the CBRD, or is that left up to the municipality?
I could just respond and maybe ask if Christian Weil, who's on the call, can speak to the communications plan and what will be coming forward from the regional district.
Thank you.
Hi, sorry about that. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah, loud and clear. Thanks, Christian.
Okay, that's great. We don't have a specific communications plan drafted, but that's something that we could do and bring back or share with the Sewage Commission if you'd like.
Thanks very much. Any follow-up, Director Swift?
No, that's great. Well, except to say, I think a communication plan would be an important part of this. We've done a lot of community engagement up to this point, so it would be good to capitalize on that and keep the interest up, I guess, and also the understanding.
Yeah, good points. The timing wasn't mentioned, but I'm assuming it would be designed to coincide with the release of the tax notices well in advance.
Maybe if I could just speak to that again, is just to highlight that it is a tricky one. It's not a step up in terms of cost. As you'll see from that table on my second or third slide there's a slow ramping up of the requisition. So over time it will get to that level, but as you probably noticed there, the actual requisition increase is in line with what's been embedded in the plan for the last several years. One back there, down there. As you can see, in the last 5-year plan, we had forecasts, 6.8 million this year, 7.2, 7.6, 8.3. So we're very much in line for 21, 22, and 23. Mariah and her team have smoothed that out after feedback from municipal staff. So now it takes us, until 2025 before we get up to that 8.4 million level. So once this set of increases has been implemented, then we will eventually get to that $150 per household increase. But it's a slow ramping up. There's no one single point at which it'll step up $150. It's by the end of, in fact, even beyond that 5 years, it'll take more than 5 years to get up to that incremental amount per household.
Thanks very much. Russell, did you want to add anything?
No, Chris covered it for me. Thank you.
Great. Okay, further questions for staff on the financial plan? I was going to ask if there were any plans to offer canoeing on Lake Louise. Perhaps we can come up with some other ways of generating revenue. I'd just like to acknowledge, Mike, the appreciation that the Commission on behalf of our citizens have for the work that you and your staff do at the plant. I know that it's a challenging role and you've dealt with many obstacles in recent years, but I just would appreciate you passing along to your staff how much we appreciate the work that you do to make a safe and professional operation out there.
Thank you very much. I will do that for sure. They'll be happy to hear that. Thank you.
All right, I'll just ask a final time if there's any further questions or comment. And thanks very much, Chris, for all of your work on this. We are on receipt. Is there anyone opposed to receipt? Hearing and seeing none, receipt is passed. And there is a recommendation. Who would like to move and read the recommendation? Director Morin.
Great, thank you, Chair. I'll move that the recommended 2021 to 2025 financial plan for Comox Valley Sewage Service functions 335 to 338 be approved, which includes the estimated capital costs and recommended funding strategy for the sewer conveyance project as provided to the Sewage Commission on February 23rd, 2021.
Thank you. And do we have a seconder?
Second.
Seconded by Director Swift. Any further discussion or comment? Hearing none, is there anyone who objects to the recommendation passing? Hearing and seeing none, the recommendation is passed. And we'll move on to new business, the proposed Comox Valley Sewage Service conveyance pipe follow-up from delegation. Receipt moved by Director Cole Hamilton. Seconded by Director Swift. And we'll pass this back to staff.
Thank you very much, Chair and Commissioners. And this information is passed on by Eduardo Uranga. He was a delegation at the last Sewage Commission meeting. You had requested that his presentation could be provided to you, and this is it. I'd just like to comment on a few of his statements. Mr. Uranga has put in a lot of time and effort to provide you with analysis. I encourage you to consider it and provide his feedback, and staff can help you with that. But I wish to flatly reject some of his comments with respect to the role of staff and the consultants on this project. In consideration of Mr. Uranga's comments, I have investigated and looked into the matter as to how we have conducted ourselves, and it is completely professional and appropriate. The regional district has had a thorough analysis and investigation in terms of the options available to the Sewage Commission with respect to conveyance. The most elaborate process is a liquid waste management plan. It provides the opportunity for professional staff from all the municipalities that participate in the service, the interests of Comox First Nation and the Department of National Defence, who are users, as well as Comox First Nations whose traditional territory the works are located within. It includes an advisory committee of residents and interest groups of the community itself. All of these interests have participated in the liquid waste management plan to come up with an analysis of all the possible alternatives that may be available to you with respect to the future of your sewer system. This process has taken 3 years. It has further been layered by a value planning process in which experts with no bias or consideration to this community, experts across North America in the terms of the sewage profession, have come together to provide advice and thought about all the possible out-of-the-box solutions. Provided to the Sewage Commission was the preferred option, and that option which was endorsed. The staff of the Comox Valley Regional District and its consultants stand by that recommendation as the most appropriate recommendation made for you, and you have endorsed it, and we will follow through with an alternative approval process in order to come up with the funding for it. We can help and assist you to help inform Mr. Uranga of that decision process. I'm more than glad to do it, but I just want to say for the record that the conduct of your staff and professionals on this file have been outstanding, and I appreciate your efforts.
Thanks very much. And I don't think any of us have any doubt about what you just said, but we'll open it up for any questions or comments, either on the presentation or on Mr. Dyson's comments. Director Cole Hamilton.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. I just wanted to say, as a member of the TAC PAC, I just thoroughly agree with what CAO Dyson said. Both staff and the consultants involved were diligent, they were tireless, and it was conducted in an open-minded and completely professional fashion. So I can only echo, having been at all those meetings, and what CAO Dyson said.
Thank you. Further comments or questions? I'm going to suggest that after we've dealt with receipt, that we take a motion to have staff write to Mr. Uranga, thanking him for his submissions, but essentially conveying what CAO Dyson has just communicated, if the commissioners feel that's warranted. Seeing and hearing no further comments, does anyone have any objection to receipt? Seeing and hearing none, that is passed. Is anyone interested in taking up my suggestion of the motion?
Chair, I'll move as you suggested that staff respond to Mr. Uranga along those lines.
Moved by Director Cole Hamilton, seconded by Director Moran, that staff communicate with Mr. Uranga based on the submission by Mr. Dyson. Any further comment or question? Any comment, Mr. Dyson? Seeing and hearing none, does anyone object to passage of that motion? Seeing and hearing none, the motion is passed. And I believe, unless there are any media questions.
Mr. Chair, could I just qualify something? There was a question asked earlier, and I'm not sure that we responded well to it. And that was the question about, is there a communications plan? And I want to assure that there is a communications plan for communicating the alternate approval process. And for that purpose, the backgrounders and background information has been and will continue to be provided for you. And we will, as staff, be responding to the many suggestions and ideas that come forward, such as has been presented to you today. So there is a plan, and I want to assure you of that. We were just referring to, is there a plan with respect to ultimately when this reaches the tax notices? Part of the plan is, the first question we're ever asked is, what is the impact to me, a ratepayer? And it is for that purpose that we've calculated, based loosely on the number of connections and the debt servicing costs. That's where we come up and arrive at that cost per resident, because that's the first question we'll get. But of course, as you know, this won't be transferred directly onto their tax notice in that way, because we bill the municipalities and the municipalities independently pass that on. So sorry if there's any confusion, and I hope that helps just to confirm with you there is a communications plan. We will be communicating and helping support the AAP process and answering questions that may arise.
Thanks very much, Mr. Dyson. And just on that subject, I believe there's also a plan for staff to respond to some communication that's been in the local newspaper and that's come to directors via email and such regarding issues relating to our sewage conveyance and the system in general.
Absolutely. And if you as commissioners get questions, we're there to help answer those. And further, if your councils wish us to attend and talk about this project, we're more than willing to come to your entire council just to help inform them as well.
And that would extend to CFB Comox as well, I assume, and our KFN partners.
Yes, we'll go to Ottawa if it's necessary.
Right. All right. Any further questions or comments from anyone before we bring this meeting to a close? Seeing and hearing none, we'll take a motion for termination. Moved by Director
Second.
Morin, seconded by Director Swift. Does anyone object? The meeting is terminated. Thanks very much.